I'm Jan.
Hey, Paul. And
This is
Shadowcast,
the Shadowcast.
to which we never fail
Always
to
have a good
capitalize
time.
on some vino.
Grab your beverage of choice and join us.
So, let me get this in so I can hear what's going on in the world. Yeah, so, I wouldn't say this lightly, but maybe of all of the episodes that we've done so far, unequivocally of all of the episodes that we've done so far, this one, if there's ever a hope that's so obvious to see of a change that we can all make in this world to end the type of tyranny that I think a vastly growing number of people understand that we live in, which is a world run by an incredibly powerful elite that put people in place, put politicians in place, put tech billionaires in place. They run the shit. And I think if I've ever seen anything that has conclusive proof, right? I hear in my life, I don't know about you, but in my life, if I could count every half-baked idea that's ever been run by somebody as a sort of solution to the problems of the world, right? Like I could never count them. There's so many, right? Like I've heard a whole bunch of shit. And I don't know, after a while you get a little bit like sort of worn out on it, you know what I mean? You get a little skeptical, you start thinking like in some way you start thinking they've won. That
there's no solution, why even try?
Well, you know what? I get my headset on right because I'm fucking excited about this one.
Look out, he's getting revved up.
I mean, it's like either you give up and you just sort of think like on some level you don't even think about it anymore, that like or the what we've allowed the world to become and what a weapon for just the growth of power and control of an elite that we live in. And or you start actually hoping for the end of days and you start like you find solace in chaos. You think, well, at least the rapture it will come, or you think at least this whole thing's going to collapse, and you, on some level, you tragically long for it, and I think that is a very unhealthy way to live in this life, and I think it causes you to live in a state of anguish and anxiety that you don't need to, because like no one knows the hour or the day, right? So like quit thinking you know the hour or the day, and instead start thinking about what you can do today to make a difference in this world and actually stop it. And like that's the first thing I would want to get.
I don't think a lot of people are living in anxiety. I think a lot of people have lowered their level of anxiety by defaulting to a level of resolve that, it's just as bad as I thought it was, and there's nothing I can do about it, and I might as well just make the best of it.
Yeah, but I would say that, once you've convinced yourself that there's nothing that you can do about it, that they've won, and
right.
that you are part of them, and you don't mean to be, but they have psychologically abused you to the point to talk about an episode we did, they've manipulated you psychologically to the point where you're obedient to them. They've broken you.
Yeah. But it's better than being hypervigilant and having anxiety attacks, and that's why people do it, because they want to get into a lower level, more relaxed state of being.
Because they think they can't.
Nobody wants to be like all hyped up all the time and in anxiety and hypervigilant and scared and in fear and all that stuff all the time.
And I think that really talks to a level of like
you got to relax,
Yeah, well, and at the same time, I think that I don't know. I don't want to I'm a pretty spiritual person. I don't have an organized religion, but I mean, I like to connect to what I perceive to be the astounding intelligence greater than my own that I've been blessed to come in contact with. And
Here. To the astounding intelligence.
But one of the things that I think I've really come to see in the world and in myself, absolutely. I mean, I saw it in myself, which is the only thing I can attest to as 100%. I can 100% tell you that for myself, that my lack of faith is in direct proportion or in proportion to my level of anxiety and fear. And that the more I lack faith, the greater the anxiety.
Sure.
The more I have faith, the more I'm able to just think like, I don't have to have all the answers today. And I trust the universe, because in my lifetime, I've seen insurmountable odds. I mean,
Miracles.
Yeah.
There are miracles that happen on a regular
Insurmountable
basis
odds.
if you got your eyes open.
Right, and just like
And go with the flow.
and trust the universe.
Right.
Trust that
Right.
it's gonna play out for you.
Doesn't have to be an angel with a wand, but there's plenty of miracles that happen. They do in my life.
Right, and like I think that beautiful truth, it allows you to sort of get to the place where you don't have to be in a place of anxiety about the state of the world if you believe that there's a solution at hand. And what I would really love you to watch this first clip and so with just a small added introduction, that if you've never heard of Mondragon before, respectfully, I would like to suggest to you that Mondragon is the new Statue of Liberty. That it is a torch, a beacon in the darkness, that you can see in her light the way forward. And please, really look at it like that. Because I tell you,
I'm
these
hearing the
guys are
angels
amazing.
playing right now.
Cualquier empresario del exterior le dirá que lo más importante sea sacar el máximo beneficio. Nosotros decimos que la rentabilidad y el beneficio es importante para sostener a la empresa, pero que también es muy importante la generación de empleo.
We believe that it isn't good for anybody if somebody loses their job. If you lose your job, you haven't got money. If you haven't got money, you can't buy. If you can't buy, you can't buy our product.
El reparto de la riqueza más equitativa llega a más personas.
So these guys, their origin story is for another day, but it is inspiring, and so you have this company. Imagine $25 billion a year in sales, 100,000 employees. And last time I knew, they were the 6th largest company in Spain. And it's 120 different companies, all of them owner run and collectively owned. So and they are doing things in a completely different way. And what I would like to suggest to you is that these guys are knocking it out. Like, there's no one they can't compete with, right? They have an incredible ability to outperform anyone that is operating a business in the old-fashioned way, the old version of capitalism, which is, I'm the big boss and I make a fuck ton of money and you're at the bottom and you make shit and you better hope that you can kiss your ass up this ladder to make some decent money.
And there's a huge differential from the top to the bottom.
And one day you'll be an asshole like me, right? Like that's your big fucking
Or not.
aspiration in life. And so, you know, but you look at these huge corporations today and it's 300, 400, sometimes it's fucking thousands to one on how much the CEO makes versus the lowest paid worker in the company.
I think always at least 300 times more the CEO makes
crazy.
than the average laborer in the company.
Crazy.
Worker.
And in Mondragon, even though everybody is equal in their ownership of the company, which I think a lot of guys, anybody who really has spent a lot of time studying socialism will maybe appreciate this difference quite a bit, which is socialism is, hey, everybody's equal, everybody's got the same share, and the result of that has proven to be completely non-functional, which is everybody starts doing the absolute least they can conceivably do because they consistently see somebody that is getting the same amount of money that they've got and doing half the amount of work. Socialism doesn't work. And what's different about these guys is that even though everybody's equal in the share of the company they own, they're not equal in the amount of pay they make each week. And there's a rule inside their company that only allows it to be a 4x multiple.
Right. So, yeah, the big guy's making 4 times the amount of the worker on the factory floor or the average
Right.
clerical worker.
And whoever is the lowest paid worker, the CEO can't make more than 4 times that amount of money. And they work very well. They're an amazing corporation. And
that person deserves that 4 times more because he's got a lot more expertise and experience and whatever. And he's the natural CEO type that can run the company.
yeah, and you don't just get to
But
check
people
out.
don't seem to resent that. They just go, okay, I couldn't do what he's doing, so he can make 4 times as much as me.
And it's available to them too. And the main at the
They
end
can
of
work their way up.
yeah, and at the end of the day, the CEO owns the same amount of company as the janitor does.
And therefore the same amount of voting rights, right?
Equal voting rights.
Yeah, I like that.
And you know, the way they run things and the way they think about things is dramatically different than what most people's experience of corporate America has been.
People seem really dedicated. I've watched some movies.
Yeah, let's watch the next clip.
Y por lo tanto, más personas tienen la posibilidad de vivir más o menos bien.
La empresa es nuestra, pero somos trabajadores también, ¿no? Entonces, no hay como un jefe que pueda haber en otras empresas, ¿no? Todos somos nuestros jefes y todos tenemos que tirar para adelante con la empresa.
La gran mayoría de las personas se integre más, se envuelva más y por tanto podemos ser más competitivos y competir con la empresa más mejor del mundo. Es el futuro, entendemos, del mundo laboral también.
To me, you know, I know so many people that are so-called conspiracy theorists that think that the world is owned by aliens and others that think it's flat. And I've met people who think there's a cartel of pedophiles out there. I mean, I've met tons of people with a ton of different theories about what is going on, but never have I ever seen an organization that can demonstrate quarter after quarter, year after year, that they can outperform any corporation. And I just like to say to you, if you're out there and you're in any way depressed or thinking that the world is going the wrong way, that you need to start buying products from cooperatives, and you need to invest and be a part of a cooperative, either join one that's already in existence or start your own, because it is absolutely clear that when you put 1,000 brilliant, conscious minds together and say, here you go, guys, run a company, and you'll all own an equal share, and everyone will live a comfortable life rather than some living extravagantly while others have to work three
Homeless.
jobs and are homeless, or just to try to keep their head above water, right? Like that the company cares about you. You are the company, not just some cog in its fucking wheel anymore. And that because we all are working together in the, as you see in this example, that it is checkmate for great corporation capitalism that thinks that they can buy our politicians and run the country secretly, right? That's the checkmate that we've all been looking for. And that checkmate is, we just have to work for a cooperative and put our own energy into making sure that that company is successful. And how many of us would it really take to get to the place where we could bankrupt the corporations that the dark hand uses in order to continue to control our politics and control our lives through that action? I say not many.
We have to vote with our purchases, and we have to vote with our energy, and we have to put our energy and our thoughts and our will toward the things that are solutions. And I think if I had to just boil it down to the biggest thing is, I think it's very clear to see that all this centralization has not been a good thing, and that things need to, in order to solve so many of the problems that are going on now, is we need to decentralize and localize, and it needs to be more, locally governed and all that kind of stuff. And that would solve the problem that we're having right now of big corporations with tons of money and billionaires with more influence than countries have. It wasn't meant to have these kind of monopolies where single individuals or single small companies can influence governments and countries and policies and cultures and everything else. So the more that we get down to the grassroots level, and the more things are equitable and fair, equitable in the right way, not necessarily the way it's often used, and it's still a meritocracy. You still got to work and stuff, We're not rewarding you for doing nothing. So I think it solves a lot of problems.
You see how it can, there's so many opportunities there, and all it really requires is that a bunch of people say to themselves, like, look, I just want to have a nice life and raise my kids. I don't need a bunch of money to do that.
Let's start a business.
And off they go, right? And I think you don't have to, you don't have to make a bunch of money to be happy. In fact, quite the opposite, right? And I think when we look at this example that's sitting there right in front of our faces, like, these guys have 100,000 employees, and they're running 25 billion a year in sales.
In 125 countries or something.
Amazing.
Just, not your small little startup thing that we're going to see in decades if it's going to work or not. They're competing with major global corporations.
Right now.
Now, it's not perfect, and I think I did some study on it. I think there's some things that can be worked out. But if we've got the smartest people on the planet, the grassroots folks that know how to get shit done, if we got those kind of people all working out the bugs and stuff. Like, there was a couple of Mondragon companies that somehow went bankrupt. There was others that had some time during, difficult times where the industry was down, and they had to lay people off, but the people in the company got together and decided how that would be done. And
Right.
For a long, long time, they just all decided to take 25% pay cut to keep everybody there. I mean, you can do those kind of things when it's
Right.
when it's run by the workers who know about the business.
Yeah, and intimately. And I think it means, quite clearly, I think that the implications are very obvious, which are, it says that any group of people that got together with their various experiences, these corporations that run this thing, the employees are us, right? We are all those little specialists of this and that make these companies hum. So Why do it for a big corporation? Why not do it for a collective? Wherever you are right now, do the same job that you're doing for a collective.
When I left the corporate world, that was one of the main impetuses, was that, you know, I'm being so ingenious and I'm putting so many hours in, and I'm putting all this effort into this company to make somebody else look good. What if I were able to do that for my own company or my own, you know, sole proprietorship or whatever?
You know, I think I keep wanting to say Buckminster, but you know, Buckminster.
Are we going to do any censorship on here? We haven't really paid attention to that yet, have we? That could backfire.
Kids, guard your wife.
That could backfire.
So, you know, I think there's this wonderful quote by Buckminster Fuller that says that you can't fight the existing reality, right? That you have to just simply create a new paradigm that makes the old paradigm obsolete. And that is exactly what we're looking at right here. So when you're looking at Mondragon, what I hope that you see, which is definitely what I see, is this is a company that if it grew, we could outperform every old-fashioned company in the obsolete model of capitalism, which was this trickle-down theory where because this small group had the banking connections and could make these businesses, they became the ones in control. Whereas now, in the age of crowdfunding, we are now looking at a situation where we can just put people together and have corporations exactly like Mondragon that can outperform anyone of the and what we're going to see in the future is this old model becoming obsolete, and that this new model is us working together and not trying to outmaneuver each other, just simply trying to help each other all have the basic qualities of life a person needs, and that most reasonable people are perfectly happy with. Not everybody wants to become a fucking billionaire and ride around on a super yacht, right? I mean, that's
and I think you can make enough money, you know, doing these things. I mean, maybe people need to lower their expectations a little bit on the fancy cars or you know, giant houses or whatever. But I think most of these people in these companies make a decent, you know, middle class, lower middle class living.
Sure.
You know, they're not poor.
Right, and
they've got cars and buying houses and stock going up in their company if the company does well.
Yeah, right. And so I think let's watch this last and third final.
En aquella sociedad anónima era realmente la sensación de trabajar para otro, acabar la hora y a casa y se acabó. Esto es algo como que forma parte más de nuestra vida, ¿no? Porque tomamos parte desde la cabeza hasta la cola de la organización, ¿no?
Al final que tenemos trabajo, que es muy importante. Muchas veces hay empresas que son capitalistas, si hay un tipo de paro, pues vas a la calle. Habrá unos que salen mal y otros mejor, pero tienes trabajo, no te mandan a la calle. ¿Te has dejado la caña? Pues tranquila, ¿eh?
Soy la segunda generación de una familia cooperativista. Las tres hermanas somos socias en favor. Lo han hecho la generación de mis padres, nos lo han dejado en herencia y tenemos que seguir trabajando para dejar esa herencia a nuestros hijos.
And how lovely is that, right?
So for those just listening audio, they were just talking about, you know, how much they enjoyed working for those companies, and that in a slowdown they were sure that they were going to keep their job, and that gave them emotional security, and that in some cases their parents left them an inheritance, so meaning leaving stock to them in the company.
I believe what she just meant is their inheritance is the cooperative. And that her parents had been a part of
building this wonderful
thing and
organization.
And they were proud to, as they should be, to be a part of it. And I think it's such a great clip for just the sort of, I don't think they see themselves as the new paradigm. I mean, you got that sense from the guy originally. I assumed he was the CEO or whatever, but had that older gentleman on there, and he seemed quite sure that they could outperform. His sentiment seems really identical to mine, which is, we can outperform anybody. And so if let's think that's true, that these cooperatives, a team of any group of people, could outperform another group of people that were there simply because of a paycheck, right?
Right. These people are more motivated than the others.
Yeah, and the one thing that's fascinating about them is typically they have many less layers of management than another corporation, and so you have all these middle management jobs that are then gone, and you have the quote unquote lowest level worker, the real worker, getting a real paycheck, and like there's no, and they own the company, right? So they do a great job. They also get the benefit of the stock dividends.
If it's your company, you're gonna be walking around like you own the place, and if you see something that's there for no reason, it's just getting paid money and it's not valuable, you're gonna bring that up and want to cut that out. And what I really like about this idea, it seems like it's bringing back the spirit of the proud artisan. That I'm proud of what I do and I make, and maybe it's not that important, but
it's still
but I
yours.
do it well, and I'm proud of the contribution I make and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's a beautiful sentiment, and it makes a better product than somebody that's just going through the motions and doesn't really give a fuck.
Yeah, and obviously on a grand scale, that equates to you don't have to babysit people because they're
self-motivated.
They're self-motivated, right? Great way to put it. And so you got, I think, that real reality with these guys. And
any team where everybody's self-motivated and you don't have to babysit people or spur people on or talk them into it or whatever. Any company that's got people that really want to do it for the right reason.
Well, I'll tell you,
it's valuable.
One of the most amazing experiences in my life that I really hold on to and reflect on regularly is having been able to have been on a board of directors with the amazing Carl Leopold. And I admired Carl more than I could possibly express. Right?
For the audience who doesn't know who Carl Leopold was, can you explain?
He was just like an amazing poet, I don't know, scientist, a combination of biologist, that taught for many, many decades at Cornell.
He wrote poems about biology.
He was an amazing
He'd have
dude.
a field day now. What is a
else.
woman? Let me count the ways.
Yeah.
Vagina.
So, Carl liked to have consensus decision making. And he was the first person that I'd ever really come across that I thought actually might be able to pull off.
How many people on the board?
A dozen.
12 people, all deciding to do the same thing. Right.
Oh, but all the time.
Amazing. It doesn't seem possible.
That's what I thought. But you know what? Carl had this, there was something just so amazing about this guy. I don't mean to just totally take it off course, but it's connected, which was he always had respect for people. And he, no matter who you were, he didn't look at himself like, I'm a fucking Cornell professor and I don't have to listen to anybody else because I'm so fucking great. He walked around like a child walks around. And one of the things I admired about him so much was the more something struck him as
curious,
absurd, or the more you would be jumped back by, offended even, the more he was keenly interested and the more he wanted to just explore it and look into it and try to.
That is like a kid, and we lose it as we get older.
That was his gift, man.
Yeah.
And so throughout that time that I was on the board, I tell you something, I learned so much about the importance of just really respecting the other people on the board and not being conscious of keeping your ego in check to the point that, You don't have to try to push it over the top of somebody else's in order to feel good about yourself. And that, like, ultimately he was so successful as a real leader that didn't lead, right? He guided and he nurtured, and like he facilitated,
But he incorporated all the input.
but it was never like it was, and he really listened, and like what I learned that day, and in the months that followed was that if you can step away from your own need to make other people think you're smart or be afraid of you or whatever story goes on in your head, and like if you can just sort of step away from that, where you don't have to make your own point all the time and you can try to help other people. I think of all of the things when I talk about Mondragon being the answer, that all of us uniting as under one corporation to rid ourselves of the tyranny once and for all, in really what I think is stalemate. I don't think it's checkmate. I think it's a stalemate, which is the very best outcome, right? That one could hope for is that we find a stalemate where we now are free of the corporate control. That
I don't play chess. What does stalemate mean?
So, stalemate's like, it's in chess where neither one of you can move, or you can't win and the other person can't move, or vice versa. And so you have a position where you didn't win, but you also didn't lose, right? And so you end up in...
That's a stalemate?
That's a stalemate.
What's a checkmate then?
A checkmate means I just figured out how to beat you and did, right? And now I've won.
Oh, you're done. Yeah. Okay.
But I think even
stalemate, you can't move on.
But I think that that statement, the old parable that absolute power corrupts absolutely, is
100%.
as true for Che Guevara as it was for the Bushes, and I think
and probably for most of humanity. I mean, we just watched that Milgram experiment and watched what all these majority of people would do if the authority just told them to do it. So
right. And I think that the biggest disability, the biggest obstacle in the way of anybody who is really being serious about attempting this and making emulating the beacon of light, it's our communication, and it's how we tend to communicate in a language of judgment with each other. Versus a language of needs, right? We so very rarely talk about our own needs, and instead we talk about the failings of someone else.
To provide our needs.
Yeah, right.
You didn't give me what I wanted this week.
And so there becomes this incredibly tragic expression of needs that no one hears. Nobody can hear through the judgment. And so you end up without your needs met and bitter, and then the person that you were interacting with also and leaves bitter, and you end up with the exact opposite of being able to be united. You end up with a division created, and that was the amazing lesson of being able to be on that board for Green Springs, but it was also something that going forward I could look into as I started to learn about Mondragon. I realized like we're a language change away from victory, and that if we can just allow ourselves to be a little bit more patient and accepting of other people and their differences, that we will see that we're not all very different at all, and that we all carry the same yoke, and that it's time that we start carrying our own yoke and not the yoke of some yoker.
Yeah.
So, I think anyway, this Mondragon is just one of the most inspiring examples of a group of corporations. Whether you believe it will change the world or not, the unarguable part is it has changed the world of those people who are working for it.
It won't change the world if nobody does it, but if enough people did it, it could make a big difference. And it's a way to have that more equal thing that everybody wants. You know, I mean, they're talking about things that are kind of border more on socialism or communism or whatever, but there's always that elite still. It's still not equal. But this is more of a way for things to be more equal, where people get all their basic needs met by the salary that they're able to earn, and then some probably, and do it in a way where they have sovereignty and they have more freedom and they have some ownership and they have some pride, and they feel like their efforts, doing something. So it's a way to have that kind of equality kind of feeling that everybody's wanting, in a way that we have control over. It's not some political system that has control over us, promising to give us that shit's never worked out before in the other things that promised it. But this is something that, and they've been around a while, right? 60 years, 80 years? I don't remember.
You know what? I don't even
Quite
get
a
me
while.
their story of starting is it's the Lady of the Lake comes forth and says, "Behold, the sword of Excalibur."
Have we drifted off onto some tangent?
I'm just saying, of the bases of power, right? Tarts in a lake is hardly the basis upon which a system of government is built.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think they really are a shining example of a way that is for us to go forward.
And if it's not that, it's some hybrid of that. But seems like a really good direction to go. And I think for a lot of people, this is news. This kind of thing, or that it's just like a pipe dream and somebody tried it and never worked or whatever. But no, it's been working for a long time, and in a reliable, practical kind of everyday kind of way. So,
and transforming the lives of 100,000 people, and on top of that, imagine that if you imagine helping to spread this. That number will just be millions. That number will be hundreds of millions, and it's just all another.
And
brick.
A way for you to protest against all the evils of what we've endured, and how bad and how mercenary and monetary and crazy and greedy it's become. It's a way to be a rebel, by just going to fucking work in a company that you helped create.
Yeah, and something that we talk about all the time here is that this is the war of 1,000 fronts, and that we are living in a time when the government is so against us that we are getting attacked in every direction, and farmers are getting blocked from being able to produce milk, and they're bringing in people with criminal records into not only the United States but Europe and all other industrialized countries, and allowing them to pass as immigrants.
And in some cases, people who don't even like the U.S., that actually kind of hate the U.S.
There's all sorts of environmental assaults that take place, and we are literally fighting a fight that's getting the people don't know, or very few of the people know that the war even is on, let alone that there's 1,000 fronts that it's being fought on, because.
And you're working too much, and you're eating shit food, and watching pretty negative content.
Well, so many people, right? And like, I think
so. Everything is cutting you down just a little bit more,
Yeah, and I'm obviously anybody that stays with us this long is a
idiot. Just kidding.
An intellectual.
We love you guys.
And you've got a thinking cap on. So like, the reality is. By unifying, we can do something that peacefully but incredibly aggressively, and I think that would fit the.
That's an interesting combination. You never hear those two together.
Right. Well, remember.
Peaceful but aggressive.
Right. I mean, this was Gandhi's philosophy, right? Which was.
He was willing to take as much time, as he wanted,
but you stay the course, right, and to go march to the sea and make some salt. Yeah. But this isn't just making a little salt, folks. This is making the whole dollar and or euro, all right, and so this is making the money, and you're taking it directly from those that we wish to stop.
Just more control of your life. You know, I remember when I worked in corporate and it's just like, I just want to fucking control when I go on vacation. I don't want somebody to tell me I can't go when I want to go do that thing or see that concert or whatever.
Right.
Just have some control over your life that, you know, you're going to have a job. And unless you fuck up really bad, you're going to be able to keep that job the rest of your life if you want to. That you have this stable income, doing what you want, in a company where you like people and
Living in balance, right?
and living in balance and not having to worry about that stuff, and then you just get to enjoy your life.
Right. And that is,
But security is important to people, more important than they allow themselves to know.
well, of course, that's very true. I mean, I think that job security can be incredibly a huge worry. And at the same time, I agree with you, which is, you know, like we're here now, we're on Earth, and like we're here to what? Serve our corporations until they deem us fit for retirement. Yes, that's exactly what they'd like you to think.
Or toss away.
And I think that a far better plan exists, which is like we're all equal owners together, and we don't need to be up on top of each other, right? None of us need a fucking mega yacht, but maybe as a company we can own.
And we all know a lot about the company in all different areas, and we put our heads together, we can make some really smart decisions.
A new paradigm. So you're bringing forth a new paradigm that's already proven to dramatically outperform the old paradigm, and like, what could be better, right? I mean, you just got to go do it. And I hope you'll leave some comments and tell us what you think.
Like, share, subscribe.
Or even if you just give us a thumbs down. Just
We'd like to hear the
something.
comments
Yeah,
too. You
yeah.
know, it's like, what do you guys think of this stuff? Are we coming up with good topics? Do you like our crazy banter? You know, is there something different you'd like to see?
Are
Just
you
let
making
us
way?
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
See you.